I'm Dan. We're brothers, and I'm the younger brother. So I had initially created the Money Basics course, and then brought Jordan on a little bit later. I work as a firefighter. I shouldn't say that I've been promoted out of the rank at this point, but I do work for the fire service still, and that's my full-time job.
I work primarily as a nurse. I've been promoted sort of kind of similar off sort of the main floor nursing to a little more management supervisor role now.
Yeah, we've kind of had sort of like polar opposite experiences with money in our journeys where and that's what sort of brought us together on the money basics stuff where Jordan's gone through this whole debt cycle thing where, they kind of went down that rabbit hole, found out that that's not the way they wanted to live and sort of dug their way out and are doing super awesome now. Me, on the other hand, I've never experienced that because I've always just been really cheap. Uh, yeah, and I got more into the investing side of things due to a lack of debt, and I always sort of lived with a very, very low quality of life. And I've learned that when you deep dive something too heavily, you lose people. The average person doesn't have the attention span to focus in on these topics. Even if I'm super passionate about it and I love the thing and I want to get into, 110 different things about a certain topic, you'll lose people after the third point.
Canadian in a T-shirt was one of the guys that I had been watching a lot because a lot of his stuff was really helpful, right? And he throws out a video and says, "Hey, I'm on this app called Blossom, and you guys should jump on," basically. And I was like, "What the hell's that?" So then I downloaded it, checked it out, and my initial thought was, "I'm gonna get on this app so I can peddle money basic stuff." But as we kind of got more into it, I said, "Dan, like you should get on this app. It's pretty sweet. Like there's actually some really good users on here. There's a lot of beginners too. So I see like a good like both sides, right? Like there's a lot of learning opportunities. There's a lot of people that we can help. And it's been kind of nice too, like being on Blossom, and I've posted about this before too, because people will go on and say, oh, like either they'll have a question or they'll promote something that I know is false about a company, let's say as an example, right? And I will look at it and I will be like, I want to make sure that what I'm saying is right. So I will go and I will research it before, and I'm like, no, 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 I thought so. So it's nice because it kind of forces me to like I'll oftentimes look into companies that I own. So it's kind of like a little bit of stock research on the side, but also, reinforces my learning, adds some learning too, because people do post some super awesome stuff on there. And
It's really easy to be a successful day trader in a bull market when everything's going up. And in fact, although I was pocketing a few $100 a day selling out of stocks, if you look back at the periods of time I held these stocks, I was selling out for a few $100, but if I just held for that period and didn't worry about the ups and downs, I would have been way more ahead than I was buying and selling. So I made a profit, but I would have made a bigger profit if I just bought and held. I've gradually changed towards ETF investing and just general index investing, with a leaning towards dividend stocks because I like dividend stocks during uncertain times. I like the idea that I can collect a paycheck if I have to sit on this stock for 5 years while it treads water because the market's just not doing well.
I just bought ETFs basically for my kids with my kids' money that they've been making from their grandfather because I didn't want it just sitting in their bank accounts or their piggy banks doing nothing. So I've had a discussion with, well, my son's 7, so he has a 7-year-old understanding of how it all works, and I told him what I was doing, and he's on board with that. But I have all individual stocks. Most of my stocks pay. I'm in dividend-paying companies on the TSX, and then I have about a third of my portfolios in the higher risk companies.
Well, at these machines, you have the option using the EQ Bank card because it's a MasterCard to accept the MasterCard rate of conversion instead of the ATM's rate of conversion. And the MasterCard rate is more or less what the basic posted rate is, plus like a tiny percentage. So it'd be like maybe the posted rate according to Google was like 1.46. The MasterCard rate would be like 1.48. It was a ridiculously tight spread. So like in the grand scheme of things, when you're spending, let's say $1,000 Canadian over 10 days or whatever, like you're probably paying like $10 in those markup fees. Like it's very reasonable. Focus on your passion, focus on building the skill set, and say yes to opportunities, even when they're scary, especially when they're scary. Just be the person who shows up, does the job day in, day out, and says yes to the opportunities. And that'll propel your career, and all the other stuff's going to follow. The promotions, the bigger paycheck, all that stuff is going to follow.
I commend Dave Ramsey on a lot of things. There's some things that I gripe about, but there was one thing he was saying is that, ignore the naysayers when you're trying to get out of debt. And if you're hustling, people are going to call you weird, to put it politely. And I had some people in my life at the time, not my parents. My parents were super supportive of the whole thing, but there was some people in my life at the time who were like, why are you doing this? You're not making that much money. I was making probably about 18, 20 bucks an hour doing car washes, just the way I wanted to price it competitively. I was competing with some other, companies in town.
And that's sort of the beauty of being financially stable, right? And the more we grow passive income streams, for us, it's mainly through dividend investing. But just for anybody, if anybody is starting to create some type of passive income stream where they get themselves in a position where they can choose how they want to spend their time. Like, to me, that's wealth. It's not the dollar amount, it's not the money, it's having the choice of how to spend your time. So me, for example, if my work calls me and says, Dan, we need you to come in on a Saturday to do 12 hours of overtime, I'm in a spot financially where I can say, what would I rather do? Would I rather kill my weekend off being at work doing something I don't want to do? Or would I rather hang out with family and friends? Or would I rather put that time into Money Basics? And I have the option to choose that. My advice to young people is this: when you're very young, and people mature at different paces, so I can't give you an exact age, but let's just say like 18 to 20-ish. When you're very young, you're not going to understand money as perfectly as somebody who's been immersed in this for 20 years. And you need to understand that you're not going to know everything. And even when you think you know everything, you're just scratching the surface. So instead of trying to become the master of every single topic, just immerse yourself in it. Just surround yourself with like-minded people who are going to propel you forward. People are going to move your education on the topic forward, whether that's budgeting, whether that's learning about debt or learning about real estate investing, whatever. Just surround yourself in the topic and the learning will come.
I want to start by saying, like, don't do what I did. I remember when I first started working, I just like spent every penny I had. It was like I always wanted the shiny thing, and so, whatever that was. And it was all consumer stuff, and I blew all my money. I really did. And I don't regret it. Like, I had a lot of fun, but it would have been cool if I budgeted. As inherently boring as that sounds, it's so powerful. If I would have even taken 10% of my earnings since the start of my working days, I would have been in a much better place, even if I didn't invest.
The easiest way to find us would be moneybasics.thinkific.com. That's our course website page. Links to everything we do is on that. So that's kind of like the central hub. But you can find us on various social platforms on Money Basics.
Yeah, and I think the biggest one that we like that we're doing sort of the better on is our podcast on Spotify and Blossom.
So thank you for having us. You're a real pro, Mo. This is really good.
It's my pleasure.
And
Thank you.
I do want to mention, I really appreciate the shout outs. You had done a post recently about the top 15 podcasts or something, and we were on the list. So I shared that with Dan and I said, look, we made a top 15 list.
Yeah,
that was pretty sweet.
Yeah,
so.
I appreciate it. And it's always so nice as well to connect with audience, like to connect with some of your friends who you've listened to their work, who you see the grind. I really appreciate the grind that you're putting in, the hustle. You talked about it earlier. You're pursuing it, what you're passionate about, and that shows through your work. That shows through the content that you share, and I appreciate that. You're not just doing it for the sake of doing it, but you really are meaningful and intentional about it. So thank you for putting the effort. I'm definitely a big fan of yours and look forward to connecting with you in other opportunities as well.
Thanks, Mo. Thanks, Mo.
Thank you.